Good afternoon and a very warm welcome to Haleon's annual general meeting. I'm Vindi Banga, Chair of Haleon's Board of Directors, and will chair it. I'd like to begin by saying what a privilege it was to be appointed as Chair from the 1st of January 2026. I'd also like to thank Sir Dave Lewis for his contribution as Chair since the demerger and subsequent listing. Thank you very much to Brian, the executive team, and all my Haleon colleagues for their commitment and extremely hard work during the year 2025. It is now 3 p.m. in London, and so I declare our AGM for this year open. First of all, delighted that you've all been able to join us today. Once again, our AGM is fully virtual. A virtual AGM allows for extensive shareholder participation, including the 2/3 of our shareholders who are not in the UK. This also minimizes our environmental impact and ensures appropriate value for money for our shareholders. It's also a good demonstration of how we leverage the use of technology to operate day-to-day as a global business. Your full board of directors have joined us today. They will all be on hand for our question and answer session as well later through the meeting. I'd now like to introduce them to you. I'm joined in person by Brian McNamara, our CEO, Dawn Allen, our CFO, and virtually by Alan Stewart, Senior Independent Director and Chair of the Audit and Risk Committee, Tracy Clark, Chair of the Remuneration Committee, Marianne Emmerich, Chair of the Environmental and Social Sustainability Committee, Dame Vivian Cox, Workforce Engagement Director, our non-executive directors, Asmita Dubey, Ploned Bergen, Nancy Avila, Matthew Shattuck. I'm also joined by Amanda Meller, our Company Secretary. I will now hand over to Amanda to take you through some housekeeping points, as well as the procedure for voting and asking questions. Amanda.
Thank you, Vindi. Let me start by running through how you can engage during this AGM. Electronic copies of the notice of meeting, annual report, and other relevant documents are all available for you to access and view through the Documents tab in the navigation bar. The notice of meeting containing the text of each resolution in full was made available to shareholders on the 13th of March 2026. For the purpose of this meeting, we will take the notice of meeting as read. Resolutions 1 to 19 are proposed as ordinary resolutions and 20 to 23 as special resolutions. Shareholders can vote on all resolutions by clicking on the voting icon on the navigation bar within the Lumi meeting platform. You will see 3 options for each resolution: for, against, and vote withheld. Please click on the option that corresponds with the way you wish to vote. If you decide to withhold your vote, please note this is not a vote in law and will not be counted in the proportion of the votes for or against a resolution. If you make a mistake or wish to change your vote, press Cancel to revise your choice. You can change your vote at any time until the poll closes. If you have already voted by proxy, any votes you cast today will override those previously lodged. Please note that if you have already voted your American depository shares, then your vote cannot be overridden today. The poll will remain open for 10 minutes after the AGM has formally closed. The results of the voting will be released to the London Stock Exchange and the New York Stock Exchange as soon as possible following the close of the meeting and will be available on the Haleon website. Our registrars Equiniti will act as scrutineers for the meeting. Turning to questions today, any shareholder or duly appointed proxy or corporate representative is permitted to submit typed or verbal questions. To send a typed message, select the Messaging tab from the navigation bar. This will open a box for you to type your question. click on the Send button to the right of the box to submit. If you prefer to ask a question verbally, press the Request to Speak button at the top right of the broadcast window. Follow the on-screen instructions to join the question queue. Please keep your questions concise and relevant to the business of the meeting. And I ask you to refrain from making statements. This will enable more shareholders to have the opportunity to engage. If you have specific questions about your shareholding or dividend arrangements, please contact our registrar Equiniti or JP Morgan, our depository bank. Details for both are set out in the notice of meeting. As we go through the Q&A session, all questions will be read out in full as asked. However, we may need to group some questions on similar topics in the interests of efficiency. Finally, if you have any technical issues with your voting or asking questions, please click the Messaging tab for support. You will be asked to select a category. Select Support from the menu. Type out the problem you're experiencing and press Send. Thank you, and I'll now turn the meeting back to our chair, Vindy.
Thank you, Amanda. And now to the opening of the poll. In accordance with our Articles of Association, I propose to call a poll on all 23 resolutions, and I'm opening this poll now. This will stay open for 10 minutes after the meeting has formally closed. As set out in the notice of meeting, all the directors consider resolutions 1 to 23 inclusive to be in the best interests of the company and its shareholders, and unanimously recommend that you vote in favor of each of them. I'd now like to turn your attention to a review with your CEO, Brian McNamara, as he reflects on the performance of the year. Tracy Clark will then provide some comments on the new remuneration policy, and Mary Ann Emmerich will speak to you about our sustainability goals, which reached a key milestone in the past year.
Hello, I'm Brian McNamara, Chief Executive Officer. 2025 was an important year for Haleon. We made good progress against our 3 strategic priorities: delivering competitive growth in a challenging environment, unlocking productivity gains, and embedding an agile, performance-based culture. Turning to performance, organic revenue grew 3%, and our brands proved resilient, continuing to outperform the global categories, with 60% of the business gaining or maintaining market share in the year. Oral Health delivered a strong performance of 7.9% organic growth, driven by Sensodyne and Parodontax. Vitamins, minerals, and supplements grew 1.9%. And OTC pain relief delivered 2.3% growth, though respiratory declined given the softer cold and flu season. Alongside that, we achieved 10.5% organic operating profit growth, supported by strong gross margin progression. In line with our capital allocation priorities, we announced an allocation of £500 million to share buybacks for 2026, and we remain focused on value-accretive bolt-on acquisitions. And as we announced in February, the board has also proposed a final dividend of 4.9 pence, bringing the total dividend for the year to 7.1 pence. Turning now to our strategy. Haleon operates in an attractive and highly relevant global consumer category, worth around £200 billion, and we are well positioned to benefit from favorable long-term trends. During the year, we introduced our Win as One strategy. This will enable us to unlock our full potential and support our ambitions to reach 1 billion more consumers by 2030 and deliver industry-leading shareholder returns. Our strategy is built around 3 priorities: growth, productivity, and culture. Let me bring that to life. In terms of growth, we're focused on closing the gap between incident and treatment in our categories, driving innovation-led premiumization, and expanding access to our brands. Take China, the world's largest gum health market, where we're closing the incident versus treatment gap through the launch of Parodontax. This has become one of the top-selling innovations across China's 3 largest cities, Beijing, Shanghai, and Guangzhou, and is now in over 10,000 stores. We're accelerating the rollout to 20 cities this year to drive further penetration. We're also delivering innovation-led premiumization. In North America, we launched our new nasal mist technology under the Theraflu brand, following success with Otriven. And we've continued to make good progress driving penetration among lower-income consumers. Take India, where we're growing our categories by bringing in more consumers. We're doing that by doubling our direct coverage in small towns and villages to 600,000 outlets. We've also launched new products such as the 10 rupee Centrum Recharge and Eno 3-in-1, as well as driving more users into oral health through our 20 rupee Sensodyne pack. Moving to productivity, we've made excellent progress against our £800 million gross cost savings program. The progress is enabling us to improve returns while continuing to invest behind innovation, brand building, and R&D. And finally, we are transforming Haleon into a world-class consumer company with an agile, performance-focused culture. In January 2026, we announced plans to evolve our operating model to drive growth and agility in support of our Win as One ambitions. This included creating a new Chief Growth Officer role to lead our growth and innovation agenda, alongside the creation of 6 new operating units, which all sit on the Haleon executive team, bringing the voice of the consumer deeper into our strategic decision-making. We also strengthened our leadership. We welcomed Natalie Jerstin as our new President of North America, and Carl Haney as our new Chief R&D Officer. As part of our announcement to evolve our operating model in January 2026, Filippo Lanzi became our Chief Growth Officer, and Bjorn Timlin became our Chief Transformation Officer. John Workman was appointed President of Europe, and Aslam Kaynak was named President, Middle East Africa. In addition, Andres Gonzalez joined as President of Latin America, and Kedar Lele joined as President of the Indian subcontinent. I'd like to also take this opportunity to thank Lisa Paley, Frank Rio, and Tamara Rogers, who have left the business over the last 12 months, for their significant contributions to Haleon. Turning to 2026, today we announced our Q1 trading statement. We delivered a competitive performance in a challenging market, with organic revenue growth up 2.2%. North America returned to growth, and oral health again performed strongly. This was tempered by a weak cold and flu season. Looking ahead, while we continue to navigate geopolitical and macroeconomic uncertainties, we expect growth to accelerate in the balance of the year and remain on track to deliver our full-year guidance. Before I close, I'd like to thank Sir Dave Lewis for the instrumental role he played as Haleon's chair since listing in July of 2022, and for his support of me and my executive team. I very much look forward to working closely with Vindy Banga, our new chair, in the years ahead. Finally, I'd like to thank the board and everyone at Haleon for their hard work and commitment to the business. Thank you for your continued interest in Haleon.
Hello, I'm Tracy Clark, Chair of the Remuneration Committee. Today, we're asking shareholders to approve our proposed directors' remuneration policy. It's 3 years now since the policy was first approved following the demerger, and the committee has reviewed it carefully against Haleon's strategy, performance, and investor expectations. We concluded the overall structure remains appropriate, so the changes we're proposing are targeted and practical. Subject to your approval today, we will implement the new policy, which contains the following key changes. First, the annual incentive plan will continue to have a standard 50% deferral into shares for 3 years. However, where an executive director has already met their share ownership requirement, that deferral would fall away, and the bonus would be delivered fully in cash, aligned with emerging market practice. Second, whilst there's no current intention to use this, for performance share plan awards, we are seeking flexibility to use alternative vesting methodologies, rather than only using straight-line assessments between threshold and maximum. The committee will retain the ability to apply discretion where outcomes don't reflect the underlying performance of the business. Looking back at 2025, Haleon made good progress across all aspects of our strategy, and this resulted in a bonus outcome of 47.7% of maximum for the CEO and 46.9% of maximum for the CFO. The 2023 to 2025 PSP awards outcome was 82% of maximum, based on performance against the cumulative free cash flow and net debt to adjusted EBITDA targets. Looking ahead, we'll continue to review our positioning in the context of evolving market practice in our peer group, and we'll keep the remuneration framework under review to ensure that the policy supports long-term value creation, reflects the interests of shareholders, and is aligned with strong governance principles. Thank you for your engagement and support.
Hello, I am Marianne Emmerich. I am the chair of the Environmental and Social Sustainability Committee. Last year, the committee has continued its oversight of Haleon Health Inclusivity and Sustainability agenda. We regularly reviewed performance against our responsible business metrics, and I'm happy to report that 2025 was a significant milestone, as several targets were achieved. We met our health inclusivity goal, empowering at least 74 million people to be more included in opportunities for better everyday health. We reduced virgin plastic use by over 10% versus our 2022 baseline. And we made all our packaging recycle ready where safety, quality, and regulations permit. We also reported for the first time on the Task Force on Nature-Related Financial Disclosures, and also reviewed our double materiality assessment, as well as preparing for new reporting rules. The committee also endorsed the Haleon new 2030 health inclusivity goal. That is to provide opportunities for over 300 million people a year to take more control of their everyday health. This was launched in March, and you can read about this on our website in our Health Inclusivity and Sustainability report. Now, looking ahead to 2026, we will continue to oversee ESG performance with a particular focus on packaging, carbon emission reduction, nature, and of course, health inclusivity. We will keep up the depth of review on priority topics and stakeholder expectations, and we will strengthen our supply chain resilience in response to climate and nature risks. In a nutshell, we are focused on sustaining momentum towards our 2030 targets. Thank you for your attention.
I hope that has given you a good summary of our performance last year, a glimpse into the remuneration policy, as well as our achievements in sustainability. You are aware that I served previously as the Senior Independent Director, and since my appointment as Chair, have focused on building on my understanding of the business, our culture, and our stakeholders. I've met with colleagues, shareholders, and wider stakeholders to help ensure continuity of leadership and constant alignment around our strategic priorities. A few reflections from me on the year gone by. Haleon delivered a competitive performance last year, outperforming our global categories in a really challenging market. Against this backdrop, we improved our gross margin significantly, through ongoing transformation of our supply chain, thereby enabling us to invest in strengthening our brands whilst delivering a higher level of profit. As Brian outlined, we launched our new Win as One strategy in May, a bold and ambitious plan aimed at unlocking our full potential. We are focused on delivering three strategic priorities: consistent growth, unlocking productivity gains, and embedding an agile, performance-focused culture. Earlier this year, we announced our new operating model as a key enabler of our new strategy. To bring the leadership closer to the consumer and customer, to enable better investment choices, superior execution, and enhanced marketing and brand building capabilities. Last year was the first full reporting year against the 2024 UK Corporate Governance Code. I am pleased to say that we were able to report compliance with all principles and provisions. The board also oversaw the update of our code of conduct, reinforcing our commitment to the highest standards of ethics, transparency, and regulatory compliance. As a board, we continue to work closely with the Audit and Risk Committee, preparing for reporting against Provision 29 of the Code next year, and continue to embed strong internal controls across our group. Board refreshment has remained a priority to ensure the breadth and depth of skills required for Haleon's next phase of growth. Last year, we welcomed 2 new non-executive directors, Bernard Bergen and Matt Shattock, whose financial, consumer, and operational expertise further strengthened the board. Alan Stewart was appointed Senior Independent Director from the 1st of January this year, following my transition to Chair. We also continued to progress actions following the 2024 External Board Performance Review. Succession planning remains focused on making sure we have the right skill set and a truly high-performing board. The final Pfizer sell-down in March last year was an important milestone for us as a standalone business and reflects our significant progress since listing. We have delevered down to 2.6 times our adjusted EBITDA in terms of debt, enabling us to return substantial value to our shareholders. Last year, we returned a total of £1.1 billion through a combination of dividends and share buyback. China is our second largest market, a key source of our long-term growth. And here, our strategic position was advanced through the acquisition of the remaining 12% stake in our TSKF OTC business. We remain focused on bolt-on acquisitions that will complement our existing portfolio with a strong strategic fit and attractive financials. In March this year, we commenced our on-market buyback program with £500 million allocated to buybacks for this year. We're making good progress already and expect this to have a positive effect on EPS. The board is proposing a total dividend of 7.1 pence per ordinary share, which represents a payout ratio of approximately 38% of 2025 adjusted earnings. This includes a final dividend of 4.9 pence per ordinary share, which is proposed today as a resolution. Turning now to our priorities for 2026, we, the board, are fully committed to supporting Haleon's ambition to reach 1 billion more consumers by 2030 and delivering industry-leading shareholder returns. Our priority for this year include driving our growth, productivity, and culture change agenda, including implementation of our new operating model, supporting our value creation framework through disciplined capital allocation in order to deliver our ambition of industry-leading shareholder returns, building our capabilities, innovation, marketing, R&D, information, data analytics, customer excellence, all towards being a world-class consumer-focused business, maintaining strong corporate governance and upholding robust ethical standards. In summary, the board will work closely with Brian and the leadership team to ensure delivery of the Win as One strategy of your company. In conclusion, I'd like to thank you, our shareholders, for our continued support and interest in the business, and look forward to a successful year ahead. We're now at the part of the meeting where we will take your questions. I'm joined here by Brian and Dawn and Amanda, who will be able to support us in terms of facilitating the Q&A session. I know we've had a few questions through that were pre-submitted. Thank you very much for those. And so let's start with those. And Amanda, can we have our first question, please?
Yes, thank you. The first question comes from James William II. Haleon has some serious debt. What is our solution to reducing this? Can we offer specials to increase sales, i.e. coupons, mail and email? Can we donate products to offset gains tax? What are you doing to pay down debt every day instead of one lump sum?
Thank you, Mr. William, for that question. As you heard, we actually have delevered quite significantly. We started as a company with a debt level of 4 times our EBITDA, and that is now down to just over 2.5 times. And before I ask Dawn to elaborate a bit more on the normative level of debt, perhaps a few words on our capital allocation principles. First and foremost, we would like to ensure that we invest whatever is required to further our growth agenda, organic growth agenda. Second, to enable a continuance and acquisitions of any bolt-on targets that might represent value addition for the company. And thirdly, to return any surplus capital to our shareholder base through a combination of dividend and other mechanisms such as buybacks. So those are our priorities, and with that, let me turn to Dawn.
Thank you, Vindy. Good afternoon, everyone. As Vindy said, actually, we've done a really good job since July 2022 in reducing our debt from 4 times leverage to 2.6 times, as Vindy mentioned. That's £10.7 billion to £7.2 billion today. And if I look at that debt, around 3/4 of that debt is at a fixed interest rate cost, and about 25%, is variable. And in terms of interest rate, the average rate's around 3%. And if I look from a maturity level, actually that debt is staggered over the next 6 years. We generate really strong free cash flow, and actually we're well placed in terms of paying down that debt as it becomes due. But when we look overall at the company, around about 2.5 times leverage is probably the optimum type leverage for this business. And as Vindy said, at that level, that provides flexibility either to invest more in terms of growing the business, bolt-on M&A, or returning excess capital to shareholders. In terms of the second question, which is around sales and coupons, as you know, actually our business is, our products are based more on needs, and actually our promotional levels are quite low compared to other categories. And when you look at our products, what's really important in terms of our products is product superiority, underpinned by deep science, whether it's our Optisorb technology on products like Panadol, where it absorbs 5 times faster, whether it's our cognitive aging claims around Centrum, or whether it's around reducing sensitivity on our Sensodyne toothpaste brand. So promotions play a role in the total value equation for consumers to drive sales. It is just one of those roles in terms of that overall value creation.
Thank you. The next pre-submitted question comes from Joseph Famby. How is Haleon thinking about unlocking new sources of innovation and fresh thinking to better understand evolving consumer behaviours, strengthen brand engagement, and drive long-term growth across its global portfolio?
Thank you, Mr. Famby, for that question. And before I ask Brian to come in, you would recollect that he did provide some examples already of the kind of innovation that is happening in the company. Innovation is the lifeblood of a company like ours. It is a very, very key enabler of growth. And I would like to assure you that there is a company-wide effort to both create and deploy innovation across all the functions, whether it be marketing, customer excellence, supply chain, R&D, etc. Brian.
Thanks, Vindy, and thanks for the question. You know, as Vindy said, innovation is a high priority for us at Haleon. It's a high priority for me personally and my executive team, and it is driving growth. I did mention a few examples that Vindy said in my earlier comments, but innovations like the clinical range on Sensodyne has driven consistent outperformance in that category. Or Ochivan nasal mist, or Voltaren 12-hour patches in our OTC business. We just launched a GLP-1 SKU on Centrum, specifically designed for people on GLP-1s. So super high priority for us, and it is driving growth, but we're not complacent. We have a new head of R&D who joined us in August, Carl Haney. I mentioned some of the operating model changes we're making with a new chief growth officer role who's going to work closely with supply chain and R&D to drive even bigger innovations. And we're investing in areas like advanced technologies and platforms in a bigger way than we have in the past. So thank you for your question. I'm quite optimistic about innovation for Haleon going forward.
We have one more question, but I'm just checking the audio line, but I don't believe we have anybody online to verbally ask a question. No questions online. The next question comes from D. Wallace. Please will you return to holding a real AGM rather than digital only? The suggestion that digital only is in line with your business practice does not align with all the events that I see Haleon attending in person.
Mr. Wallace, thank you for your question. Haleon has a really international shareholder base, and actually the vast majority of our shareholders are located outside the UK. This is across the world, across Europe, North America, Asia, Latin America, etc. And that is perhaps one of the most important reasons why a virtual AGM is in order, because it provides the most democratic format. It enables shareholders, irrespective of where they are, to be able to participate, to ask questions, and to vote on an equal footing. The timing of these meetings is also set so as to accommodate multiple time zones. And actually, many of our shareholders value this ability to engage with the AGM. I've said before that it's also representative of how we operate as a global business and in a very productive way. It also reduces travel and associated environmental impact, which, as you've heard earlier, is really important for our business. So I hope that answers your question.
We have no more questions. And I'm going to check online. And we've got one more question that's just come in. If you can just hold on a second while we receive it. The next question comes from Judy Cunnington. We have many wars going on in our world today. What is Haleon doing to support victims of these conflicts? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cunnington. And before I invite Brian to respond, I would acknowledge the fact that there is much more strife today than was there several years ago, and that's indeed a matter of great shame and great concern. One of the things I would highlight is that one of our key responsibilities is towards our own employees and those people connected with the company. We take that very seriously in all these zones and constantly try and assure that our people and connected entities are as safe as possible in this world. But I'm going to turn now to Brian to amplify that.
Yeah, thank you for the question, and thank you, Vindy. And as Vindy said, our first priority is safety of our employees and their families. I'm happy to say that that is in fact the case today. And then separately, continuity of supply is also very important. We provide health products, and it's really important that people in these war zone areas have access to the products they need to take care of themselves and stay healthy. And then on top of that, we're a member of the British Red Cross Disaster Relief Alliance, and we're currently deploying funds and products to help support the people on the ground in Iran and around the Middle East, and those that are affected, who are returning to the UK. Thank you.
I've just checked on the phone and online, and we have no further questions.
Thank you, Amanda. As we have no further questions, that concludes the formal business of this year's annual general meeting. As I said earlier, the poll will remain open for a further 10 minutes before closing. We will issue the final results shortly after the close of this meeting to the London Stock Exchange. Thank you once again for taking the time to join today's meeting and for your ongoing support, which is very much appreciated. I hope you will join us again online next year for our annual general meeting. And until then, my very best wishes to all of you.